Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I am your host, JP John Paz, and with me today is a man all the way out in Germany today. He's a former NWA World Tag Team Champion, a former CWA World Tag Team Champion, former IWA Puerto Rico IC Champion, and a million other belts, but I will just stick to this. He is Just Joe, Joey Legend. Welcome to the
Thank
two-man
you very
power
much for
trip.
having me. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate
Yeah, no problem. So what's been going on with you? I know you're out there, right? You're still living in Germany. So what's up? What's
it.
up
Yep.
out there in the motherland out there?
Well, they used to call it the fatherland.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah, I'm over here in Hanover still. I moved here officially back in 2004, but I started coming here in 98 working for Otto Vance. And now I do a little bit of work in Germany when these lockdowns aren't happening. I still do wrestling. I teach a lot of seminars. So usually Saturdays I teach a seminar on Zoom actually for the time being for a local promotion here in Hanover, EWP. And I've got one coming up for a promotion in Italy as well. But we're just waiting for things to kick back open. I was a couple weeks ago. I got to star in a music video for a German band called Jupiter Jones. So that's kind of kept me busy too. But mostly, usually every month, I fly to Paris, teach a class there, go to Poland, teach a class there, go to England on a regular basis. I've been to the UK 138 times. So
Whoa.
I've been, yeah, back and forth. The UK's been pretty good to me. And then obviously Germany, and then I'm, everywhere, 46 countries in. So I've traveled a lot.
I feel like I know you're Canadian, but I feel like you were a completely world traveler. Like, man, more than than you're used to hearing, even for a wrestler, more than you're used to hearing.
Well, it's just the thing is you living in Germany makes it easier because, like, if you're in Canada or the States, you kind of are for the most part in Canada and the States because they're big countries. Whereas, once you're inside the EU, you can move around quite easily to other countries. You're all of a sudden you're in Portugal, you're in Spain, you're in Greece, you're in Italy, and you can kind of move around really easy. And actually, with the cost of flights over here on the cheaper airlines, it's cheaper to fly me than for me to drive. Like there are flights to England. I took one flight to Manchester, and there was a seat sale, and I got from here to Manchester for a penny. And then there was the flight back, which was I think £70, which is probably $90 American.
Wow. Geez, Louise, cheap.
Yeah, so it's easier to get around. So all of a sudden, I'm winding up in Romania, Transylvania, doing stuff there, and yeah, just everywhere because it's so easy to get around once you're over here. It's getting over here that's the start. Once you're over here, there's a million places to go.
I feel like just to me, it's like, wow, that's so weird. Like, can't believe, you're living over there, you're staying over there. What made you kind of fall in love with over there? Because obviously, you've been there for a long, long time.
It's a nice way of calling me old. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, no, I met my wife when I was wrestling here in '98.
Oh,
She's
okay.
Yeah. So I met her here. She would come to the gigs and stuff. So we met. We started dating. I went back to Canada, but we kept the thing going. Proof that long distance things can work out on occasion. And then I got signed with WWE. So she was still over here, but I was on the road all the time. Didn't matter. I was just putting money away for the wedding and stuff like that. Then when I left WWE, I came over here and went to England for a couple months. Then I went back to Eastern Canada for a few months. Then I went back to Germany for a bit, then to England, then back to Germany. Then it was. Oh, then I went to. I did a bunch of European stuff for WWA. Then I went to Australia and New Zealand. Then I went to TNA. And when I finished up with TNA, or no, I went to Puerto Rico. Then I went to TNA. Sorry. Then after TNA, I moved back over here pretty much for good and kind of made this my base of operations in 2004.
Man, the traveling and stuff is just insane. This promotion, that promotion. Are you that kind of person where you don't want to get settled into one thing? You like to be open and be an independent contractor?
Yeah, I'm terrified of four walls. That's why I got into wrestling. I've been doing martial arts for years, and I have four black belts in karate and kung fu. And I thought, well, great, I can kick a lot of ass the unemployment line, but it's not paying any bills. And I thought, I just can't sit at a desk and alphabetize insurance forms or work on a machine doing the same thing, looking at the same faces every day, seeing the same four walls. It drove me nuts. And I wanted to just get out and see the world and do things on my terms. I don't like kind of being locked down into one company with like my WWE time. Like I hated my time there. The money was great, the travel was great, met a bunch of nice people, but I got locked down into a terrible gimmick, and then there was kind of no way out from under it. Whereas if I was in a territory where I have control, normally because I've been around quite a bit, they let me do what I want, and usually it works. Just because I have enough experience to know what works and what doesn't. But if I was just unhappy, boom, I just move on to the next one. Whereas if you're under contract for WWE, you're stuck doing whatever they want for as long as they got you locked down. And you wind up, like that Andre guy who just quit, like he was just miserable. So he walked, and there's a few other guys I've read stories about where, was it Ryback? He was miserable, and like Punk had the biggest push for years, just was miserable. He didn't want to do what they were saying all the time because a lot of times he knew better. I'm not saying he knew better all the time. There are plenty of things I'm probably sure that he pitched that weren't very good because everybody's got good and bad ideas.
Yep.
But he's more of a headstrong, free spirit type guy, and I'm kind of the same way.
Now let's stick on WWE just for a second, because you were there during their arguably most hottest period, the hottest time in the midst of the Attitude Era. How did
Yep.
you get kind of recruited in? I know you did dark matches and the quote unquote enhancement matches before and stuff like that. So how do you get recruited in? How do they notice you?
Well, at Sully's gym in Toronto, Edge and Christian were training there. I helped Ron with the training there. So I helped get them a bunch of bookings out in Winnipeg and various other places. So Adam got signed, Edge got signed, and then he got Christian signed because they're like best friends. So they were gonna, anytime they could help each other, they were going to, absolutely, and I can respect it. So then I was out wrestling. I'd done Japan. I'd been in FMW, NOW. I'd done South Africa. I'd done Eastern Canada. I'd done a bunch of indies in Ontario and the States. And, I was out in Eastern Canada, and I'd gotten a call from Jim Cornette. We want to get a look at you because Adam and Jay say good things. Usually as soon as they'd hire somebody, they say, hey, okay, who else can we get who's like you? Because we hired you for a reason. So they put my name in. And I went for a couple of workouts with them in Connecticut. And they kept saying they like my stuff, but, we don't know what we got for you, but right now we like your stuff. And then when I was out in 99, I'd come back from Germany, and then I went back out to Eastern Canada for Emile Dupree, Renee's dad.
Yep.
He used to run huge territory all over the Maritime. So I was out there for 4 months, having the best summer of my life. And I get this call from Christian, say, because I was staying at the ref's place. Christian knew the ref's number. I didn't have a cell phone. He's like, are you going to be by this phone? Be by this phone in an hour. I'm like, all right, calm down. Why? He says, Terry Taylor's going to call you. They want to bring you in for a thing. I said, all right, they brought me in for a couple. I'm not going to get too excited. He goes, no. They want you to be the Terry Gordy of the new Freebirds. Michael Hayes is putting together a new Freebirds, and they really want you to be the new Terry Gordy. I'm like, well, that's super flattering. I think Terry Gordy's awesome. On the other hand, I'm not really into Southern fried rock. I don't drink, and I'm not from the South. Are you sure I'm a Freebird? And he's like, do you want to get paid? I'm like, I am a Freebird. Look at me go. So I got a call from Terry Taylor, and I finished up in the Maritimes on September 5th. He flew me in September 6th. September 7th, I got signed. And then we had me and Reckless Youth, and then there was going to be one third guy. They hadn't confirmed the third guy, but it was me and Reckless Youth were going to be the Freebirds, 2 of the 3. And Michael Hayes was going to manage us. And we were all set to go, and they said, okay, you got to get you your work visa. So I sat at home for 7 months, waiting for him to get my work visa. And in that time, Mike Hayes decided he'd rather just be an agent and not be on camera. So they killed off the Freebird gimmick, and then the company didn't know quite what to do with me.
Damn, and Reckless Youth, I'm a New Jersey guy. I'm from Asbury Park. He is one of the guys when I used to go to the Indies as a kid, like, this guy's awesome. Tom Carter, Reckless Youth, this guy is the best. Yeah, I used to love him and his stuff. That stinks for you guys, though.
He's a great guy, too. Not just, I mean, it's great if somebody's good talent, But Tom is a genuine good human being. I would have loved to have been on the road with that guy.
It stinks for you guys though. Just like the guy has his, he changes his mind, so it kind of screws two guys out of a job, essentially.
Yeah, and a third, I guess, because there was going to be a third
Right.
guy. So, but I mean, I guess Mike, he'd put in his miles and put in his time on camera and stuff, and I can understand if he got to a point where it's like, yeah, I don't really want to hit the gym every day to look a certain way for the cameras, and I don't want to listen to agents. I want to agent stuff. Like I can understand him wanting to be more in control and not have to listen to the agent. So I can see why he would be starting to manipulate himself into an office spot, especially because I mean, like I'm 51 now. Bumps hurt a lot more than they did when I was 20. At least
Yeah.
it lingers. So I can see why eventually a manager's got to take a shot.
Yep.
Every manager eventually gets punched, gets knocked down, gets bumped. Undertaker gives him the last ride, whatever. So I can see why he was like looking at that. He's like, I do not want to take this, and this move down the road. So maybe I'll just move off to the side and keep my income coming in. So I can understand why Mike did it. And I mean, look at the new Midnight Express and the new Rockers. Who knows if people would have gravitated to it, or it would have been the new Razor and Diesel.
New
So maybe,
blackjacks. Yep.
yeah, exactly. He might have heard something from the office about what they were going to do. It's like, that's not Freebird at all. I don't want to put my name on it. So I can understand that too. That could have been a dozen other reasons.
So where does that leave you then? Like 7 months go by, then they decide they wanted to bring you in under a different character?
Well, they flew me in to Connecticut to meet Vince. And I got in the last plane out of Toronto before a blizzard shut the airport down. I remember that. I was like sitting there on the plane. We weren't sure if it was going to take off. It's like, if this thing doesn't go, I'm going to be so mad. Oh my God. Like this is fate keeping me back.
Yeah.
But we got there, and I got there about 10 or 11 in the morning. And then I had to sit all day. I didn't end up getting in to meet him until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. There's 3 of us there. And they took good care of us. We got to use the big gym in Titan Tower and have meals and everything. They were really nice. And then eventually they brought me in, and they brought us in one at a time. I think I was the third of the 3 of us. And while we were kind of getting organized to go in, I think he was watching videos ahead of time of each guy. So he knew what he was talking to, which I can appreciate, do your homework. So, oh, good. So what I ended up doing was sitting down with Vince and Bruce Pritchard and Linda. There's somebody else there. For life of me, I can't remember who it was. There's definitely Vince and Bruce were doing most of the talking. And they were like, so how do you, it's Kevin Kelly. Because Kevin Kelly had called me prior to this and just wanted a brief history of my life. The best gimmicks are you with the volume turned up. So let's see what your life is, and then we'll try and attach a gimmick to it. And I'd done a gimmick. I remember this specifically. I'd done a gimmick out for Candello out in the Indian reservations in Manitoba, because they wanted me to work twice a night. They said, listen, Don Callis can't make it. He's sick. I think he just didn't want to go on the road. I think he didn't want to. Those reservation tours were tough, and he was, I think, fed up with them. So I was like, yeah, I'll work twice. I can always use the ring time. So they put a mask on me like in the opening match, and then I wrestle as myself later. And so they gave me like a doctor's smock and a mask, and they said, you're going to be Dr. X. And you go out there and just, work with somebody, put them over. And I, like 2 minutes in, I'm like, this is terrible. Like, let's have some fun with it. We're in the middle of nowhere. So I pulled the ring announcer by, they called her the Goat. And I said, Goat, listen, I'm not Dr. X. Tell him I'm from San Francisco General Hospital, Communicable Disease Ward, and call me the male nurse. And I came out and I made Goldust look butch. Right? I just really over the top silliness. Just I get bumped out of the ring, and I'd sit on a guy's lap, play with his hair, and then I'd hump the ref's leg. I was doing every stupid thing I could just because I was just trying to have some fun, have a laugh, and try to. The fact that I could make Bad News Brown laugh, because he was always kind of. I mean, he's one of the best people I ever met, but he always kind of had that look on his face. So when I come back to the locker room and he's sitting there with tears in his eyes, laughing, that was funny. I was thrilled that I was able to pop the guy. Well, I made the mistake of telling Kevin Kelly that story. And I sat down with Vince in Titan Tower, and he's reviewing the notes of my interview with Kevin. He goes, "I see you did a thing called the male nurse." I'm I'm trying to keep cool on the outside, but on the inside, I'm like, "Oh dear God, oh no, oh Lord, for the love of God, no." He said, "Says here it made Gold Dust look butch." I'm like, "He quoted me, for the love of God, he quoted me. I will strangle Kevin Kelly." And then Vince looked down, he looked back at me, he goes, "I never ever want to see that." I'm like, "Oh, thank God." Like, he
Yes,
told
thank
me,
God. Yeah.
yeah. I was like waiting for them to make me like a transsexual Nazi Eskimo or something, right? So clearly I didn't want that. So he's like, "Well, how do you see yourself being pitched here?" And I find cults scary. And there was some anniversary of the David Koresh thing. And so I was like, "Yeah, I find cults scary." I said, "I'd like to do a cult leader thing." Because, number one, it works. I mean, you can look at Raven's Flock. You can look at a number of different angles to show a cult leader working his angle. But number two, you have a lot of guys who are kind of just floating. They're under contract, they're getting paid, but they're floating, they're not doing anything. You can throw them in the cult, then you can start having them make money for you, right?
Yep. Yep.
And he's like, "Oh, I don't know. We don't really like to go the religious route." And I'm like, "The Ministry of Darkness, Brother Love, Reverend Devon." Like, I didn't say this, but that's what was going through my head. So I'm like, all right. So then I said, "Well, what if we do a thing in this?" I got this idea from old Dory Funk angle. It was right at the tail end of the grunge scene. So I said I should cut all my hair off, real short, suit and tie, and show up and just tell your audience are all a bunch of half grunge knuckleheads. What do you say? I tell them they got to straighten up and fly right and get a real job and take the stupid facial piercings out and blah 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 blah. And I'll have a group. We'll call them the moral majority, because I know you've been butting heads with them forever because the content had gotten quite vulgar.
Yep.
So this would be a way to kind of give them a smack in the ass. And he was like, "Yeah, I just don't see money in that right now." And like, then the right to censor came and went, but either way.
Yep. Yep.
So we threw around a couple more ideas, and I kept kind of nudging back towards the cult leader thing. And he's like, "Yeah, but the religious thing." I go, "Yeah." So the thing is, I'm not saying I'm God. I'm saying I'm just a messenger, and that's what makes me a jerk. Is that I'm manipulating people using a higher power. I'm not saying I'm the higher power.
Right.
I'm saying I'm representing the higher power. I'm just a messenger. And he pauses and he does a total Mr. Ring Man. He's like, "The messenger. Don't ask me. I'm just the messenger." Like that. And I
Yeah.
was like, "Are you still in the room?" Like, I didn't know if he just went off into McMahonland or something.
Yeah.
But then he started getting really excited about it. And he's like, "We could do this and that." And Bruce, call down to licensing and see if we can get the messenger as license for us and blah blah blah. And we kind of ping ponged ideas around, and eventually it was kind of a thing where, like, for example, we had like Crash Holly there. Crash Holly's got to wrestle Taz. So you see him backstage, like, "Oh no, I got to wrestle Taz. Taz is going to suplex me on my face, going to kill me. Oh, this sucks." And then I just kind of appear out of nowhere and say, "Well, Taz does have weaknesses for the right price." And then you see him grease me with some loot. And I'm like, "Okay, well, Taz tore his bicep ages ago. Here's a picture of the X-ray of his arm, blah, blah, blah. You go after that arm, you can win." And sure enough, he goes out and he beats Taz by re-injuring his arm type thing. And I would be the guy with the inside information on all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ultimately, the way I picked it was I'd be using it to get people to injure the people I was going to wrestle next. So they'd always come in at me injured. And that gave me the heel license to get ahead in the company. And somehow he turned that into involving me with the acolytes, with the APA. Like, I forget how it worked out, where I was like the middleman for the APA. And I'd be telling the APA, "Yeah, this guy's a dick. Break his neck. He's got a bad neck." And then they go do it. And then took a few more months to get my visa. By the time I got there, I guess the acolyte thing had gone by the wayside, and they committed to using me to get the Kurt Angle Hunter feud off the ground. Because I was always like, "Hey, Hunter, Kurt's trying to nail your wife." Like, "Hey, Kurt, Hunter's slapping Stephanie." and I did that to get the ball rolling on that, and then they had to pull me off because if I stuck around any longer than I had, the heat would have switched to me, and that wasn't the intent of the angle. The angle was intended to start those two in their program. But once they pulled me off of it, they didn't know what to do with me, and that's where it all really went to hell for me on the gimmick. It just there was no. If one of the writers had committed, I talked to the writers numerous times. This one guy, Jamie, who was kind of the writer assigned to me, I kept talking like, "Here's an idea. No, we're not doing that. Here's an idea. No, we're not doing that." And I remember pulling Gershwitz aside. I was like, "Listen, let me know something. With my character, am I lying or am I telling the truth?" And he's like, "Well, what difference does it make?" I'm like, "It makes all the difference in the world. If I'm telling the truth, I'm a babyface. I'm a babyface, and I'm really trying to help, and I have a good heart, and I'm worthy of some kind of praise and getting over with good people. If I'm lying, why am I lying? Nobody just runs around and lies for the sake of lying. They lie as a means to an end. What's the end that my means leans toward?" And it never worked because I never got a string of wins so that one loss would matter. So they never really had any plans. They were just kind of spitballing me in there because, hey, Joe's here. We're paying him. Let's give him some ring time just to make our money back. So
And
once the thing fell apart, that was it for me.
they really didn't call you the messenger either. It was they literally just Joe. Like, did you like that, or that was kind of?
Oh, it's terrible. Gershwitz went to bat for me on that one because he went into the one production meeting and he said, "Yeah, we got to work on Joe's name." And Vince's like, "Oh, I find it funny, ha ha ha, pal." And Gershwitz says, "Yeah, but," he goes, "any guy we book and we want to use, we want to book all of them that they could be the world champion, even if they're not going to be. But can you see, you're a winner of the WrestleMania main event and new world heavyweight champion, Just Joe." There's no ring to that.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "We got to work on maybe a last name." I threw the gag out that my last name should be King. And every time they talk to me, "Yeah, I'm just joking," right? That would have been the haha. And then I'd be pulling practical jokes. Ultimately, it was going to go in I slowly lose my mind and turn into the Joker type thing. Well, where pain is the inside joke and I'm the only one laughing, but I find it hilarious. So I go make myself laugh. But that would have been, I tried to get that going in Memphis when they put me down there, but shortly thereafter, they bought WCW and ECW. They had plenty of guys they wanted to bring to TV every week. They didn't have to pay for my visa anymore. They didn't have to pay for my international travel from Canada in and out because I wasn't going to go to competition because there was no competition to go to. Yep. So they released me, Jason Sensation. They released the same day because we're both Canadians. That's extra taxes now they don't have to pay. And I understand why the release happened. They had no immediate plans to bring me to TV, and they had a ton of talent to bring up. So they didn't have to cultivate me. I could go and work and make my own money. And then anytime they wanted to get me, I was one phone call away because who would say no when there's only one place to work?
Yeah, that's true. You kind of screwed the industry there by losing WCW and ECW right basically within a month of each other.
Yeah, it boned a lot of guys. It accomplished his goal. He had a certain goal. He accomplished it. There's you got to give him a little respect for that. But at the same time, in a broader sense, it really messed up a lot of careers. There's a lot of guys working 9 to 5 who should have been making, TV money.
Did you ever think when they did the Triple H Kurt Angle thing, and then maybe move you along, did you think that, okay, maybe they got some big plans here? Because I kind of interjected myself in their world title storyline. Maybe they got something for me here. Did you think that?
I was expecting something. Like eventually, because I stirred the pot, but then I never got my comeuppance. I got comeuppance on every other stupid angle possible. Every other stupid like beak off backstage. But the one major one, I never got hit by Hunter or by Kurt. I would have expected, if nothing else, like those two in the Royal Rumble. And then somehow I'd be out in the Royal Rumble just amongst, the 700 people they put in the Rumble every year anyways. And just be stuck with those two for a minute. And the two of them would launch me around and kick the hell out of me and throw me out to get back at each other, Like they both realize, oh, it was this little jerk here. And then they pile on me, but I didn't even get in onto the Royal Rumble.
It would have made sense. For sure, that would have made some sense.
Yeah, but I guess, they had they turned the idea so much to the WCW invasion thing that pretty much everything pre-invasion almost got backburnered or dismissed entirely because they had such fire in their eyes for that angle. I guess they didn't want to pay off the old angles when they had bigger angles to kind of push forward with.
Now, I know you said you kind of helped train Edge and Christian, came up with Edge and Christian. Do they say anything like when you leave WWE and you get your release? Do they kind of say, "Oh no, we should keep them around," or they go to bat for you, or that's not really kind of their position?
Um, Truthfully, I don't know.
Hmm.
I would hope they would, but I think they also saw how miserable I was. Like every week you show up and you're like, "Gee, what's this? It's brutal. What are they doing with me this week? This sucks." Because I pulled a few guys aside. Like I pulled Shane aside, Stephanie, a bunch of them aside. Just say, "Look, you're booking me out of a job." No, no, no. We love your work. I'm like, I appreciate that, but you've got me doing stuff here now that is not money, and you're a business. If I'm not making you money, I shouldn't be here. Like that just makes sense. So you're going to eventually come to terms with that, and I'm going to be given the elbow. And I'm here every week. I'm working hard. I'm trying hard, do everything you ask of me. But what you're asking me to do isn't making money. And no matter what I tried to push for, the writers wouldn't move it up the ladder for me. The funny part was like a year later, I was out in the Indies. I think Christian left a year later, year or so later, maybe 2 years. But when he walked out, he called me and he's like, "Hey, Joe, how you doing?" "Yeah, I left." I'm like, "Oh, really?" He goes, "Yeah, because they had me coming out in chicken suits and all kinds of foolishness." I'm like, "Oh yeah." He goes like, "Do you know what it's like to show up to work every week? It's just I have no idea what they're going to do with me. This sucks." I'm like, "No, I have no idea, Jay. I wonder what that's like." And he's like, "Oh yeah, right." So the thing is when the company's when it's the only company and they got no competition to worry about you leaving for, I think a lot of the guys under that company's umbrella who are doing well really kind of want to grab on and protect their own spot because there's always somebody else trying for that spot desperately because they can't just pick up and walk somewhere else. Like you had a guy like Dick Murdoch who was a fantastic worker. If they told him to do half the stuff they asked me to do, Dick just would have left because in that era, I'm off to NWA, I'm off to Puerto Rico, I'm off to Japan, I'm off to
Yep.
AW, I'm off to wherever. Whereas I ate more crap than I should have because I wasn't sure I had any legs to get anywhere else. Like this is what they're doing with me. If I call WCW tomorrow, they're going to say, "Well, why would we take you out if WWE isn't using you? Well, why would we use you well?" So I kept trying to kind of dig my heels in and work harder every day to get a better push. And instead, it's the old adage is you get treated as you allow yourself to be treated. And I should have dug my heels in and said, "No, I'm not doing it. You're creative. Do something creative. This is horse." Well, I don't know if you can swear on your show.
Sure.
But this is a load of garbage and change it. So part of the onus of responsibility has to lie at my feet. A couple times I was ready. I was actually going to go punch out Pat Patterson once. He was rude to my fiance, then wife now. So I was like, "Oh, he was rude to you? All right, well, I guess I'm going to go punch Pat." So I come marching over all in a mood. And Christian walks up, "Hey, this is my first day, my first TV as a regular TV guy." And Christian walks up, "Joe, you all right?" You're like, "Matt," I said, "Yeah, I'm going to go punch Pat. It was nice working with you." And he's like, "Well, why?" And I explained to him. He goes, well, don't. I was like, "I'm gonna, like, screw this guy." So I kept marching, and then Jay's like, Adam, get over here." So Adam goes over, "What's going on?" I said, "I'm going to punch Pat." So I had to explain to him, and I kept moving. Then Jericho comes over, and the three of them were like, "Look, Pat wouldn't do that to Taker's wife because Taker's got position. Do you want to throw away everything you've worked towards now for one punch? Just shut up, grit your teeth, and when you're in a better position where they'd be stupid to kick you out, then assert your dominance, assert your masculinity, whatever you want to call it." And they made perfect sense. And to be honest, they were all three really well pushed guys. So I thought, okay, they know the political landscape better than I do because I'm a terrible politician. So I listened to them. And perhaps I should have followed my heart and I guarantee WCW probably would have looked, if I'd punched Pat Patterson, I imagine the next day Eric Bischoff would have had a phone call to me, if nothing else, to offer me something. I would
Right.
have I would have made money for a year, and then I would have got probably the same rough treatment that Jarrett or one of those Gold Dust got when Vince bought the company and leaned on him on that crossover episode.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. So obviously, you're almost happy to be gone and leave WWE. So you do some WWA when they were kind of doing those big tours, and then you end up in TNA. How did you end up working for the Jarretts?
I was doing those WWA tours, and um, I just kind of lucked into because Scott D'Amore was him and Terry Taylor were booking WWA stuff, and then for some reason I think Terry ended up with TNA, so Scott was kind of on his own booking it, and they were doing England, Ireland, Scotland, and Switzerland, and so he called me up and said, "Hey, listen, we need some referees. Do you know any referees over there?" I said, "Yeah, I can get you some referees." Hey, got a spot? And so they hooked me up, and I worked the whole tour. I worked every night with Mike Sanders and had great matches. Very, very underrated guy, Mike Sanders. He should be spoken of more highly in that era as being just really good talent, really good guy.
He's above average.
Very, very true, very true. But he's a really good guy. So the tour went well, but when we got to the pay per view in Scotland, they brought in Jeff to defend the NWA belt. I believe it was against who's the big Australian guy?
Nathan Jones.
Nathan Jones, yes. And so he had to work Nathan Jones. So they brought him in just for one or two shots, the pay per view, and I think one other. And he watched my match, and he came up to me afterwards and, I really like your stuff. I said, yeah, I heard like TNA is a thing. Who do I talk to? He's like, me. Call the office. We're sorting you out. We want you on our thing. I'm like, great. Okay. So I kept in touch after that tour. I kept calling the office. They kept saying, well, we'll see. I'm like, well, I need to know because I've got to come from Germany and move to North America. You're not going to fly me over there every week. You don't have that budget. So I got fed up waiting, and I got a call from Luke the Bushwhacker to come down to Puerto Rico for a spell. So I went down there for a while and kept in touch with TNA. And just in time for that, WWA called and said, yeah, we're doing Australia and New Zealand. And we're doing a pay-per-view in Auckland, New Zealand. So between the three companies, I was able to leave Puerto Rico and go to Detroit. From Detroit, I went and did the Australia and New Zealand. And then I came back to Detroit. I lived in the Canadian side in Windsor, but it was basically Detroit based.
Mm-hmm.
And I could fly down to Nashville every week from Detroit for, I think it was like $200 for the company, as opposed to a Canadian flight, which would have been $1,000. So WWA agreed to bring me in that way because they were friendly with Jarrett. And then I could start with TNA right after I left WWA. So that's how I got in with them. Is Jarrett came in, and I think I had to do a run in actually in his match when he won the WWA belt from Sting in New Zealand. So between his watching my stuff with Mike Sanders, watching my match with Sabu in New Zealand, and then having me do the run in, he was like, I want to bring you into TNA.
Pretty cool though how you end up there because TNA was bringing in all talents from everywhere. They were trying to mix it up, diversify. Mexico, Canada, Puerto Rico, obviously overseas, everywhere they're bringing in guys. So when you settle in there and you become like a red shirt security, or what is kind of like, what's the idea for you? What's like the gimmick? Like it's kind of almost, I don't know, not innocuous, but it's like he's a security guard. Like what is like you and Kevin Northcutt, like what is this gimmick?
Well, they brought me in. I was a member of Vince Russo's Sports Entertainment Extreme, SEX, because everything's, kind of a bit of a ha-ha with those guys. So I came in to be a bulldozer for Jeff. Jeff and I did a little run through, did a bunch of matches. At the end of that, which he kind of weaseled me on, there was 1 week we were going to have off in September. So I had an offer to go to Germany and do a 10-day tournament in Germany. I'd only miss 1 week because we had 1 week off. I would have been in Germany for 2 weeks because you have to go prior and then I'd stay a little bit longer. So I said, listen, I'll just give up Germany if it's going to mess up my spot here. But all things being equal, if I can go to Germany and come back, that would be great for me because it's more money. So let me know. So Vince Russo Said, yeah, like go and do it and see if you can get some footage, and maybe we can throw that up on the pay-per-view saying that you were over in Germany kicking ass, yada yada yada. It's like, okay, cool. So I went to Germany and we had the week off, and then I missed the 1 week. And when I came back, I'm like, okay, where's my plane ticket? Like, oh wow, yeah, we don't have anything right now. Wait. And so I was home for a couple of weeks, not getting paid. And I was like, this sucks. So I kept bugging Scott because I'd taken over as trainer for Scott's school. So I see Scott all the time. And I'm like, Scott, what's going on here? Because Scott was, obviously booking him and Terry Taylor and those guys. And eventually Scott, this is always, the kiss of death. He comes back. He said, all right, I was talking to the office and they got something for you. I'm like, okay, cool. He goes, before you crap on it, let me tell you the whole thing. As soon as you hear that, it's the kiss of death, right?
Yeah, it's over. Yeah.
He said they want you to do the red shirt security thing. And they already had Northcutt and this other guy, big tall guy. I can't remember his name. Real nice guy, though. They were doing the red shirt. I'm like, security guard? Why am I going to be a security? And they protect Jeff? Why would I be the bulldozer brought over from Europe to kill Jeff and use that as a springboard to the lucrative career of security, protecting the guy I just beat the snot out of?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, that's all. If you say no, they're going to sit you longer. So it's this or nothing right now. So I was reluctantly stuck because I'd already moved to Windsor. If all my stuff was still in Germany, I probably just would have said, call me when you got something better. But because I'd already moved to Windsor and I had the wife there and the apartment and all this stuff. So, all right, well, I need an income. Let's do this. And so we started doing that, and it made absolutely no sense at all. But we were getting over enough that apparently I was telling Scott, it's like, they're doing nothing with us. Like, we're going out there and we're steamrolling, but it's nothing worthwhile, And Scott's like, honestly, Dutch and Jeff were talking and they just think you guys are awesome. I'm like, we're not booked like that. He said, Dutch was in a production meeting. He said, you know what? No matter what we do to these red shirt guys, they always get reactions. We beat them down 6 ways from Sunday and they keep getting over. I'm like, well, then why don't you do something with us then instead of just using us to drag other people over? I mean, the one angle we did with Brian Urlacher and Johnny Fairplay, that was fun. And Urlacher was a super guy. And, to get in, to do something physical with an NFL person, that's a nice little pat on the back for me. I can look back fondly on. But they didn't really have much to go with. And then at the last minute, they put the tag belts on us. I'm like, all right, well, good. This is the turning point. We've eaten enough crap and we've still done well. Now they're going to maybe get behind us a little bit. And then it was Road Dogg and R-Truth. They were the tag champs.
3 Live Crew.
There you go. I'm never playing Trivial Pursuit with you. So we're wrestling them for the belts. And then for some unknown reason, Shane Douglas was coming out with a chain on his hand, and he punched one of them. Or I remember he made the impact on the guy, and then Kevin got the pin. But there was no reason for Shane to be out there. He wasn't involved in anything we were doing. So there's no point in that. And I thought it just pulled heat off of us because why would Shane care if we had belts or not? Right. Unless we were his bodyguards, right? There was no angle saying that he was part of our package type thing. But I'm like, all right, that doesn't make any sense, but we'll do that. And then the very next week, we dropped the tag belts. It was supposed to be us versus AJ Styles and Abyss. But then Apollo came out and got into a fist fight with Abyss, and they fought and just left, which is, as Jim Cornette might say, lazy booking. You want to pay that off somehow to the viewer, but they fought and left. So then it was us two against AJ, and then AJ ended up beating Kevin to win the tag belts on his own, which then he had to vacate. I'm like, well, how is that helping anybody? Yeah. Like, if anything, this is our chance. If we thump out AJ 2-on-1, just even don't pin him, get disqualified, but be brutal. That's going to up our value. And then when AJ comes back with another partner, we got something to come back with. Now we're going to do this tonight. Like, you're paying the bills. All right. So I just thought it was all scattershot and just wouldn't it be funny if booking. Oh, they'll never expect this booking. And sometimes a swerve, yeah. And sometimes they won't think of this because it's dumb. Like most
Yep.
people wouldn't think of this angle because it's a dumb thing to do.
Yeah, so
But
don't do it. Yeah.
yeah, so they came up with a bunch of that stuff, and that was our our 1 week run as the NWA World Tag Champs. But to say that I held held the NWA World Tag Belt for any length of time, I could say that's more than anybody in my high school ever did. So
Yes, there you go. There you go.
I
Nice.
can pat myself on the back and say I one up them. If I ever go to a high school reunion, I can be proud of myself there.
So after you leave TNA, you end up right Pro Wrestling Noah. You end up in Japan for 0-1. You're kind of obviously still traveling the world. EWP, which you were talking about before, is kind of going on throughout this whole period, right? You're still working for them back and forth too.
Yep, EWP, and then um, EWP split, and there was another company called POW. I worked for them for a bit and was their Intercontinental Champion for a while. And now I'm back with EWP. Just more reliable to me, to be honest. So I came back with them, but I work for Unlimited Wrestling, which is up in the Hearts, which is like a mountain range not far from here. But they draw great crowds. Like their first show drew, I think, 700 or 800 people, which for the building was, I think, pretty close
Yeah,
to a sell.
great.
And I'm the head trainer there for their wrestling school, and I was HEW champion in England, an LDN heavyweight champion in England, an LDN British champion in England, and ICWA champ. I've been the champ in Russia since 2007. I won the belt there in Moscow in 2007. Belts from Italy and everywhere. I've been kindly pushed to the top spot in a lot of different countries around, because hopefully it means they appreciate that I leave the best impression at the end of the show.
Where was your favorite place to wrestle? Not just as far as like name, like what's your favorite country? Is it Germany? Is it England? Is it the US of A?
See, if I don't say Germany, then I'm under a German roof right now. I'm going to get stabbed, I'm sure. I've always enjoyed Germany, but I mean, 138 tours of the UK. England's been pretty great to me, and I love the style there, and I like the cultures everywhere I go. For just in-ring work, I've always loved Japan. I've had 15 tours there, and everyone's been a diamond. I've always enjoyed Japan. I mean, obviously Canada's got a soft spot for me. Born and raised, and broke myself in there. But I try to find, anywhere I go. I love going to South Africa. South Africa is always great. The only place that I would not want to go back to is Nigeria. Nigeria was terrible. But virtually every other place, I've always been able to find cool things. I went to Transylvania. Unfortunately, I was 400 miles from the castle, but next time I want to go see Vlad the Impaler's castle to say I did it.
Yep.
But there's and like Russia, like being able to go around Moscow, going into Red Square, going to Lenin's tomb, seeing the body under the glass. I mean, that's for just kind of a numbskull from Scarborough, Ontario, to be able to say I've done that.
Yeah.
Like I said, most people from my high school can't say they did stuff like that. So I consider myself blessed for all the different places I've been. And there's a blessing everywhere if you look for it.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing, though. If you just think about like, well, that many tours here or there, you mentioned Nigeria and Italy and Russia. I mean, just crazy the world traveler and how you've been able to get around. Do you think that that's one of those things where not all wrestlers can do that? It's got to be a certain type of wrestler because like I know a couple wrestlers like let's just say Justin Credible's like I just wanted a contract and I wanted to work here and like I wanted to stay there. Like some guys like to be in one spot like their whole career. Like Tony Gray is like, I gotta be in the Northeast and stay there, like do you think that you're kind of not different, but it's like it takes a special breed to really, really truly be like that international traveler or that really independent contract?
That's me really putting myself on a pedestal
Do
to
it.
say
Yeah.
I'm a special breed. I'm above the rest. I am a lord, by the way. I legitimately have a lordship, so I could put
Whoa.
myself on a I could put
Nice.
myself on a pedestal and call myself Lord Legend.
Nice.
I don't know if it takes a special person. I just think it depends on your interest. Like there is something to be said for stability. I mean, knowing every week you're getting your WWE contract, knowing every week or every month or every 3 months you're getting your residuals. There's something to be said for not having that stress. For knowing if you get injured, they're gonna pay your medical and they're gonna take care of you. I get injured, it's on me. I got to pay my own insurance and stuff like that. I don't like I say. I think it just depends on what your interest is. I like going to different places. I think there's a certain adaptability you have to have. Being able to get over with FMW is very different than getting over in England or even old school CWA here in Germany. It's two very, very different styles. And if you can't adapt, you lose out. I watched guys come over here and they just couldn't do it. I've taken them aside, like friends of mine, and I've pulled them aside. Okay, here's what you're doing wrong. You need to do this more, that more, try to help them out. But then you have a guy like Super Crazy who showed up and within 2 days had the style down. He was just so adaptable. And you wouldn't expect it because you just think, well, Lucha, that's its own animal.
Yep.
But Super Crazy was so adaptable. Within like 3 days, I would have considered him one of the top talents here amongst the style, not just as far as name value or bringing something different to the table. He could come in and do what the other guys did and do his stuff. So I think maybe if there's one thing I can say I have is a certain adaptability and being able to, I mean, the internet's been a help too. I don't watch a whole lot of wrestling anymore just because I've done it and seen so much of it. But if I'm going to a new territory I haven't been to, I'll look their stuff up on YouTube. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
that's their style. Okay. And I can come in with the mindset on how to work. Whereas years ago, I'd have to go and hope I was in the opening match so I could look through the curtain, watch the first match or two, see what the crowd's reacting to, and then gauge the style. But I think there's a certain adaptability that I can say that, I've been able to figure out what styles work where and get the most out of it.
Yeah, I feel like, especially with today's wrestling, that you see a lot of guys, they may be just not no psychology, but let's say less psychology, and they try to do this kind of bing bang boom style. Maybe not succeed in the WWE and then go back to where they were and maybe they do okay. But it's one of the things you're right, like adaptability, being able to work, do some different things, have some psychology, have some storytelling. Like FMW is a lot different than CWA or Pro
Yeah.
Wrestling Noah. So that's awesome. You kind of and you were in WWE and then you wrestled a little bit differently there in TNA. So adaptability is definitely huge.
Yeah. And like I say, if wrestling was easy to do, anybody could do it and it wouldn't be worth paying to see. So there has to be a certain skill set. There has to be a learning curve. There has to be something in there that's more than just show up and do moves. You got to know when to do them, why to do them, and how to do them while exhibiting your character. There's multiple things you have to do. I've just been doing this for 30 years, so I've had enough, trial and error to make sure I know what I'm doing. And I've learned a lot teaching. Like when I'm trying to explain stuff to somebody so they get it, I wind up getting a better idea of it in my own head, and I can convey it better, and I can actually perform it better. And having the different styles to go out with, I don't want to go out there and I don't want to go to like say AEW and wrestle exactly like Dustin Rhodes. They've got Dustin Rhodes. What do they need me for? I should go there and bring something a little bit different to the table. But I've still got to bring something a little bit different, but something that's not so different that it doesn't fit. See what I mean?
Yep, makes
It's
sense.
got to, it's got to fit in with them, but then at the same time, it's got to stand out, which sounds like a complete oxymoron, but it does make sense from my side of what I have to do to get over with a crowd.
Yep. And they
I
have
just
so many.
I show up and do my own stuff, and I hope you like it. If you don't, screw you. Well, no, that's not my job. My job is to get over with you, not to tell you that I'm over, but to get myself over.
And they have so many guys in AEW to do the same exact stuff, and they obviously don't watch the match before them because you'll see the same move repeatedly, like the same dive or the same flip, and like, man, I guess they weren't watching before, or they don't deviate from whatever plan that they have set up for their match. Like, ooh, not good.
In,
Psychology.
in fairness, though, that like guys working from a program is not just AEW's
Hmm.
problem because
I
a
agree.
prime example was the first time Goldberg and Brock Lesnar worked. at the one WrestleMania.
Yep, 20. Yep.
And Austin was the referee. Like,
Yep.
first of all, when the referee's getting more pops than the talent, you got a
I
problem.
know. How could the referee be more popular? I mean, those two are insanely popular, but you can't have a referee that's out more popular than the wrestlers.
Exactly, right? But at the same time, those guys went out there, and at the time, at least, maybe it's changed now. At the time, they were programmed. They had agents in their ear, top agents. Patterson, I'm sure, was there for Brock, especially.
Mm-hmm.
But they had top agents. This, you do this, then you do that, then you do this, then you do that, and blah blah blah. And they pieced it together, and it didn't get over. And they didn't know how to deviate from what they were told to find something that would. Whereas if that had been Austin Rock, they got out there and people started crapping on them. They just would have kept changing crap up until they found what worked, and then they run with it because those guys could work.
Yep.
So though, Goldberg and Brock Lesnar, two top guys, they've held all the big belts, but they were programmed. So it's not just AEW that guys are running from a program and can't deviate from it. WWE did it too, and they're as much as fault as anybody else.
Yep, still do it. And if you look at Rock Hogan from WrestleMania 18, they completely changed what they were doing. They switched
Yes.
babyface and heel, and they obviously two pros and two of the best ever. But
Yeah. And
it's
Toronto's always been Hogan town, so it wasn't
yeah.
gonna. It was gonna be swimming upstream trying to get people to boo Hulk.
I think Hulk knew that too.
Yeah, and I mean he was in business for himself a little bit. I mean I'm not gonna
Of course.
put angel wings on the guy or anything, but if they had gone the other route, the crowd would have still booed Rock, cheered Hulk, and probably booed the finish. But instead, they worked it around so that the crowd was on their feet the whole time. And at the end of the match, really, you could probably, if you had 10 people in the room, you'd say, who won? And they'd have to go, wait a second. Oh, yeah, Rock.
Yeah.
Because the match was so over, the winner didn't matter at that point.
Awesome. Great stuff. Yeah. Now, as we head towards the wind down, head towards the finish, what do you got coming up? I know there's COVID, there's pandemic and stuff, but what do you got coming up? What do you got planned?
Oh, well, HEW has just announced a whole bunch of shows in Essex, just outside London, right by the Stansted Airport. They run there. So I'm doing a bunch of those upcoming. Those will all be on my website, or not my website, but on my Facebook. I'll have it on Twitter, at the Joey Legend. Apparently there's a Joey Legend one. But that ain't me. It's got to be the Joey Legend. Somebody else took Joey Legend.
They stole your name, yeah.
They burgled my name, yeah, the rats. But I'll have all announcements on that. I've got bookings here in Germany for Up in the Hearts for Unlimited Wrestling. As soon as things open up, I'll be teaching wrestling classes again in Paris every month and in Poland every month. And I move around Germany. I'll be doing some stuff in Austria, in Vienna. And I've been talking to a promoter friend of mine in Nepal. I'm hoping we can work something out so I can go to Nepal, because I haven't been there and I really want to go there just to go to Ravenwood's bar from Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Marion Ravenwood was.
Yes. Oh, yes, yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah.
That place exists. So I want to go there. I don't drink. I haven't had drinks since I was 20. But I will buy somebody a shot if I can keep the glass. To have a shot glass in Ravenwood's
I got this from the Hangar Bar at Disney Springs, Jack Lindsay's.
Nice.
Yeah, so
fair.
But I know, yeah, the Ravenwood Bar. That's awesome.
Yeah, so there's a few of those things. I'll probably head back to Detroit as soon as we can get it going, because Rhino usually has me come in for him. We've been like best mates forever. So I usually do a tour of Michigan, Ohio, Ontario, New York, New Jersey when I go down for him. But everything kind of hinges on the whole travel issue. Yep. And I've been doing a million podcasts lately. So yeah, I'm glad you slotted me in and gave me a window for this as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. So I know you mentioned your Twitter and stuff. Where else can the fans find you?
Well, there's Joe E. Legend is my Facebook page. Also, I tend to look at my Joe E. Hitchen and my real name. Hitchen, just like Kitchen with an H. I always post stuff that I'm doing there, all the podcast stuff. I just did the Stevie Richards podcast, the Conspiracy Horseman.
Yep, Stevie's a buddy of mine. Yep, him and Ben. Yep.
Yeah, they're great guys. So I just did their last show a few days ago.
Awesome.
and I'm doing one this Wednesday. I had it last Wednesday for my buddy. It's called Shooting the Shizette for a guy named Starbuck. He's a Canadian guy who lives in Finland, and he was the champion of the Smash promotion in Japan for a while. He's a good guy. So we have to redo that podcast, and we reviewed the last AEW pay per view, and I guess I'm going to have to do that again. The first 5 minutes recorded, and then somehow everything got cut out. So
Oh, damn.
I'm going to redo the whole podcast. I get another hour and a half with him, and I'll keep doing the stuff for EWP Wrestling in Hanover here, doing the Zoom classes, and I'll be posting on at the Joey Legend anytime I have stuff coming up, and on my Facebook, obviously. And I somehow inadvertently joined Instagram, and I don't know how I did it. I got sent a link to Instagram for the music video I shot for that Jupiter Jones band. And I was like clicking on crap to try and see the video. And next thing you know, I've got people like, hey, such and such is now following you. I'm like, what? So I don't know how I did it, but I've inadvertently joined Instagram, and now I have a bunch of followers.
Awesome.
I guess I don't know what I don't know the heads and tails of it. I'm old.
I know. I'm getting used to it too. I'm not even very familiar with it, but I love it.
I start using that to promote my appearances, and if they go to w3lwrestling.com, that's a promotion I work for regularly in Scotland. They put out new Joey Legend T-shirts, which
oh, cool.
I think are really nice, but I mean, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But if you're interested in that, have a look at their website. They're great guys, and I think they do a great job with the T-shirts for all the talent. But I'm really happy with mine. w3lwrestling.com.
Awesome stuff. Joe E. Legend, thank you so much for all time. I really appreciate it. All the way over there in Germany, all the way in the future in Germany over there. Thank you so much.
I'm 5 hours ahead, but I won't tell you what happens.
Awesome. Thank you again. I really appreciate it. Awesome stuff. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Anytime, my friend.